Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, namaste, namaskar, pranam, vanakkam, adab. Welcome to yet another live chat. And today we have a very, very important topic of effective decision making and time management. Last week, I was in the hot seat, the so-called hot seat, and a lot of people asked me that, how do you manage your time? And I said, I don't manage the time manages me. But that actually sparked the idea that why not talk about time management? Why not have an expert telling us how to manage our time, how to balance various things that we want to do? And we have, fortunately, a very good expert with us who's part of our group, Mr. JP Singh. So he will be talking about the decision making and time management, because both the things go hand in hand, so you have to take important decisions in life, what to do, what not to do, and how to balance things. So it's an important topic. So I requested him and he's kindly agreed to come on this show, and let's proceed further with this. But before we do that, I know Mr. JP Singh since 2004, so for last 16 years or so. And in his words, tapping into the leader's inner strengths and potential creates excellent results easier and faster. He's had experience of more than 30 years of in leadership role, where he was working in companies like Lakme India, India Today, and he was the MD of Bosch and Lam. And then he left the corporate jobs and pursued his passion of helping people, guiding people, coaching people, being a management life coach and mentor. And I have myself had the pleasure of being coached by him at one point of time. So I know his style of coaching personally, and that's the reason why I wanted to rope him in for today's talk. But before we call him to start his presentation, I'll ask Anupma to just give us a brief protocol of how to ask the questions for this day. Anupma. I think Anupma is probably not able to. Okay, so if you have any questions which you want to pose to Mr. JP Singh, you can put those questions in the chat in the Zoom. That'll be taken up first, no? Then you can put the questions in the live stream on the Facebook, the live chat group, or on my wall on the Facebook. Those questions will be taken up later on. Any questions which are left will be answered separately later on in the chat itself on Facebook by Mr. Singh or by any of us. No. So welcome, Mr. JP Singh. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. We can.
You can start your screen sharing.
Yeah, I think the screen is behind your. Okay, it's fine. You all can see the screen?
No, not yet.
Give me a moment.
Yes, we can see it now.
You can see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So thanks, Sanjay, for that warm welcome. And I'm honored to be a part of this discussion. Been watching from a distance for so long. And really honored to be in the interaction with such an elite group. When Sanjay spoke to me about, I guess, a week back of talking about time management, he said, "Why don't you say some thoughts?" So the first thing that triggered me was I've been a passive member on TSC, so I said it'll give me an opportunity to contribute something to the group. I've been getting so much from the group earlier. I thought it'll give me an opportunity to learn from you and share some thoughts. So here I am. I'm no expert on time management or these subjects. I was a professional manager, as Sanjay said. I was in the corporate world. So whatever I have is my own learnings and understanding on how I used to manage in my profession, how I used to take decisions and manage time. So I'll be sharing some of the practical experiences. More of it is an approach to how problem solving and decision making and time management can be looked at. But the only thing is, don't ask me how Sanjay does it. I don't think anyone has decoded that still. I'm sure even Nidhi doesn't know how he does it.
Nidhi manages me actually.
I know how he does it.
But that's a very difficult one. So I'll try to cover everything minus what Sanjay does. It's a decision making, time management are huge topics. So let's see what we can do in the next 45 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll touch various aspects, more of an approach. It may work for some of you, it may not work for some of you. But if something rings a bell, we can subsequently deep dive and look at more details on that as we go along. But I do a lot of work on problem solving, decision making for sure. And some of my thoughts are from the Kepner-Foury framework, which are used for problem solving, decision making. But you can't cover all of that in 45 minutes. So let's see how much overview I can give you. You can get into details sometime later. So this is something I loved in the context of decision making and time management, as stated by Rudyard Kipling. He says, "I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. The names are what, why, and when, how, and where, and who." And I think this is this captures everything that you need to do about decision making and time management. These 6 questions capture the essence of everything. So when Sanjay said decision making and time management are integrated, nothing else can say that better than this statement. And fundamentally, both are intertwined. You improve decision making, and time management gets better definitely because you have that much space available. You improve time management, you get better decision making. So each of these are interdependent, and primarily they are both energy components. And each of these, when they work together, they help you decluttering and clarifying the mind. In Indian philosophy, we also say the universe is composed of space, time, and causation. So it's integrated from that perspective also, beyond what Rudyard Kipling said. So if we are looking at decision making and time management, the 6 questions that Rudyard Kipling talks about are covered under space, time, and causation on why something happens, on the causality. Let me share with you a lot of questions that come to mind. And these are various questions that we keep talking about. How do we do it? And we are told, make a to-do list, set up timings for email, don't do it throughout the day, do it 1 hour in the morning, 1 afternoon, 1 hour in the evening. We are told about setting up meeting discipline, share an agenda before the meeting, start on time, end on time, decide on which participants come in, so that all these help in contributing to time management and meetings better. In a meeting, one person talks, don't get a phone in, start the day early, exercise daily, sleep on time, reduce socializing, reduce social media, don't do multitasking, and learn to say no. But the point is, each of these, I guess all of us know, and all of us very clear on how these can be done, or these have to be done. But the difficult part is, in spite of that, we don't know how it is to be done and how it should happen. And that's a big question that comes to mind. So when they don't happen, the questions that immediately come to mind are, is it really important for you? Otherwise, why wouldn't you do it? In terms of time management, some of these things that we know, we still don't do. And sometimes some of us get the day cluttered. And then we say, I don't have time. But the point is, all of us have 24 hours in a day. And some use it better. How are they able to do it? So how are people able to manage time better? How are they able to do these things? How are they able to make better decisions? So the two parts that come up in this context are, how important is something for you? And how do you fit them all in a day if everyone has 24 hours? Primarily, if we look at this kind of a statement, it helps us understand whether it's time, whether it's resources, everything is in shortage. So economics got born because it studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means, which have alternate uses. And so is time, so is resources. Where do I deploy this resource? Where do I deploy that resource? Those decisions come up. So resources will always be limited. And each of these resources will be put to different uses. And there'll be unlimited demands. So whether this is in economics or be it in any other field of business, the fundamental point is to take decisions about what is important. So the 2 points that I said earlier, what is really important to me? How do I answer that question? Because if that is answered, then I can decide where to spend my resources, how to allocate my time, and what decisions to take. And this is easier said than done. This is where the whole rigmarole of decision making and time management comes up. But you have to understand and appreciate that, never, ever will time be enough. Never, ever will resources be enough. So we have to understand and appreciate and recognize that point, so that we're able to, allocate time better. This is a question which someone asked Walt Disney. Walt Disney said, if you can dream it, you can do it. And Disneyland was made in 366 days. Someone said, how did you do it in 366 days? And he said, we use each of those days. So simple. Because what they were doing, they realized was important. What they were doing, they realized to be done that day is important. And they utilized time better. They also utilized 24 hours in a much better way. There's another statement by Howard Schultz. And any of these things, some of these things that we listed, a huge laundry list of what helps us make decisions better, what helps us manage time better, will not happen on their own. They will have to manage scarce resources. We'll have to understand what is important. We'll have to plan. And Howard Schultz, he's the founder of Starbucks. He said, luck is the residue of design. So if we want to be successful, if we think luck does it, it's got to have a lot of effort and design behind it. So the decisions then therefore are, is it important to me? What should I do? Is it the right thing to be done? rather than, how do I do it the right way? That comes later. That's also a part of decision. But what is the right thing to be done? So it's first to be decided, how much is it important to me? Is it the right thing to be done? A very important statement that comes up in this context is it the right thing to be done? We say we will make priorities. I will prioritize my schedule. But the other side of this is someone said, don't prioritize your schedule, schedule your priorities. Decide what is right. Get your priorities right, and then schedule them. Because some of these things that we think are priorities may not be. And then we bring them lower on the priority and don't do it, or put them on a lower scale on the priority list. So we'll just come to the next section with this context where we say, okay, if that's the case, if we have to decide what is important and we have to decide what are the priorities, how do we end up doing it? How do we find those things? So, some of these things are very extrinsic, like the to-do list. Don't contact social media. Conduct meetings on time. But it can't be so superficial. Can't happen just by saying don't do it. There's something inherent, intrinsic in each of these, which is important. And when we look outside the world, in the world outside, we say it's a VUCA world these days. That's a term going around for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Now, when the world outside is going ambiguous and we have multiple priorities, obviously there's going to be a clash, and decision making will be difficult. Time management will be difficult because both the things are moving. The outside world is moving fast and in a complex manner. Our minds are cluttered, and both are moving, in different ways, in different directions. And so obviously when two moving parts rub against each other, they create friction and they're not aligned. And that is what leads to a lot of stress these days, because our decisions are not right, our decisions are not aligned with what is important to us in life. And sure enough, it leads to chaos and stress. So there are 3 points that become important in this context. Purpose. What is the purpose of me doing something? And then, looking at finding rationally. There's a rational approach to doing things. But in this rational approach, sometimes you forget, that apart from the left side of the brain, there's also the right side. There's a subconscious which is at play. Very often we try to solve problems, and take decisions in a rational way. We try to look at time in a rational way. But and that's why we don't go anywhere. We don't reach anywhere. So it becomes important that we look at these things not only in a rational manner, but also try to activate our right side and the subconscious. A lot of people, when they're trying to find answers, make decisions, they look at even the spiritual, the superconscious, and try to stream in answers and solutions from there. So the point I'm making is, if we have a purpose clear, and if we know, logically how to address issues, and we switch our minds also to creative and holistic thinking, we can approach decisions in a much better manner, where otherwise sometimes we get stuck in a rational thinking. So having said that, these 3 then lead to these, I call them the 5 Ds. We need to freeze a sense of direction. We said purpose. And along with that is a sense of discovery. And then the rational part, I said, it's about sense of discipline. How do we get discipline to find the answers, execute them? And then there's this holistic part, the creative side. We need to be, what about a sense of destiny? Where am I headed? What do I need to do? And how do I, everything is useless unless we get delighted of it, unless we get fun out of it. So that leads us to doing everything so that at the end of it, we are we enjoy everything. We are happy. So let's just touch sense of direction to start with. We all have, I use this tree metaphor to talk about this. So we have the roots, which are like, in Indian philosophy, we say these are unmanifest desires, and we are born into this world. Now, this is something that I use. I said it may not be something that resonates with everyone, but there's a thought process. We can use any other thought process to come to this point. But this is one way that I look at it. The key point here is that we need to find our purpose. When we are born, a lot of our unmanifested desires push us into this world, and we are here to fulfill a life purpose. You may use this background, or you may use any other background. The whole point is about finding a life purpose. And if our business purpose is aligned, if one of the branches of this tree shoots out of our life purpose, they'll be aligned. And our decisions on business or our life mission or business mission or professional mission are easier to take because they are in alignment with the purpose that we choose to live our life with. And if the business purpose or our mission in life is frozen, when we have to take decisions about what are my goals in life, where do I need to go? It's very easy. We refer back to our life purpose, we refer back to our business mission, and it's easy for us to say, okay, this is important for me, I should do that, or this is not important for me, I should not do that. And when we make goals, this term SMART I've used for actions and goals both. This is specific, very specific goals that we need to do, measurable, meaningful, attainable, relevant, and time-based, time-bound. So when we set SMART goals, which are in alignment with our basic purpose, in alignment with what is important to us, and there are timelines attached to it. And for each goal, then another branch shoots off, and we have very specific actions. So when we use this discipline, I was talking of a sense of discipline. When we use this discipline to approach our life, take decisions, to manage time, we realize that we know what is important for me. We know how much has to be done, when it has to be done. Anything lower in the priority, we drop off. I use this example from the famous star Shah Rukh Khan. He said, I'm in the business of entertainment. Very clearly, nothing else. So we see him shifting from movies to IPL to television. It's all about entertainment, nothing else. With that, if we have a little bit of sense of discovery is needed. People call it ikigai, the Japanese. In Indian philosophy, we call it swadharma. So the point about life purpose that I share here, we can use any of these to define whichever of these definitions we feel work for us. We can use those and try to fix the trunk of the tree so that becomes our lighthouse, our beacon, to be able to say, this is important to me, this is how I measure my priorities, so that when I have to take a decision, when I'm at crossroads, which path to take, I use that. When I left my corporate world, I had a very clear mission, which I reflected and gave myself, which is to help people realize their potential. So when I have to take a decision or spend my time, I measure it against that. So when Sanjay said, will you talk about time management? I said, for sure, because why? Because it will help me to help people in realizing their potential, either in decision making or in time management. So I said, yes, I'll do it. But if it's for something else, I may not. I was thinking, then what is Sanjay's life purpose? and to get Sanjay thinking, is it physical and creative well-being? I don't know. You can reflect. Sanjay, I'm giving you task for the night.
Yes, I will be thinking. I've been thinking about this for the last many, many years,
Yeah. So, when I see Sanjay straddling across, how does he decide what I have to do? How much time do I allocate? I guess, somewhere there will be a thread which is linking all these together, and Sanjay decides how I do it. Is ophthalmology, physical well-being, cycling, photography, singing? Is there a link between creativity, creative well-being, mental well-being, and physical well-being? Something we all need to reflect on. So let me at this point in time very quickly share a clip with you on how important is so this is from the movie Milkha Singh, and the reason I'm sharing this is because somewhere he lost a sense of mission and his decisions started going wrong and his time went wrong. He was spending time at the wrong places. Sanjay, can you see this?
We can see this, but there's no audio.
Oh.
I think the sharing, you need to enable the audio computer sounds also.
Hmm.
You may have to stop sharing and then share again. And then at the bottom, there comes the option of enable computer audio.
Yeah.
Subtitles were there and everybody knows the scene.
Yeah, okay. So if you can do with that. So you basically asked him, what's the world record for 400 meters? And somewhere in Australia, he lost the game, the race, because his focus got diluted and went somewhere else. Sanjay, is the screen back?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, I thought it's important to share this with you because this is a practical case where he lost focus of a sense of purpose, and somewhere, his decision making went awry. When he went to Australia, he got totally lost. His time management went for a 6 and he lost the race. And then subsequently he comes back, and his lighthouse, his beacon, everything he measured by was the next race to win. So that's the purpose part. I said there are two more parts, the rational part and the holistic logical part. I guess, we may not be able to do justice to this, but let me share, very quickly run through both these. The rational part very simply has, all frameworks that we talk about in the rational decision making are essentially based on the GROW model. The GROW model is set the goal, check what are the realities of the situation, assess around, do a situation analysis, check what are the options available to me, what are the solutions available, and make a working plan. Choose the best option. So it's a divergent and convergent thinking style. Whenever we want to take a decision, capture as much data as you can and then try to converge it and try to analyze and shrink to one point. When we analyze when we get a divergent thinking, the next step in rational problem solving, decision making is we in the goals, when we set the goals, we define the problem and challenge. We know the parameters for success measurement. If our mission, if our purpose is very clear, and at that point in time, we decide what are the various possible actions, the options, and then basis impact and weights, we choose what actions we want to do, and that's how we come to making solutions after we've stated the problem, when we have to reach a decision. And there are various other formats, rational thinking formats for taking decisions. There is a root cause analysis, where we say, what if it happens here and why not there? So we keep isolating variables, and then we can plan risk avoidance and risk mitigation plans. We can use decision trees. I'm sure very often in medicine we use decision trees. We look at pros and cons. We look at an analysis where it says, what if I do it? What if I don't do it? What will happen? What will not happen? So these are various frameworks. In this space of time, we may not be able to cover everything, but I thought I'll just touch base on these and let you know the possibilities of rational decision making, and then who all participates in that decision making. That's an important element also. We can, some people use decisions single-handedly, they don't get anyone in. Some people use collaborative decision making. And there's a role of stakeholders. All stakeholders have knowledge. If we get all together, like people, doctors and medical people in this group know, in nature there is gene pool trading and symbiotic cohabitation. So there is a lot of information in genes that are available. Similarly, in organizations, in our families, if we get them all together, decision making, a lot of knowledge, information comes in. We're talking of options. And then we sit as a family, for example, if there's a family discussion, put all that information on the table. Every member of the family has information. And then we can choose, what is the best option to take decision. And, the last point on rational decision making is time management. I don't think we'll justice to this session without time management, Sanjay. So what is important in time management is, once we have the important and urgent parts clear, and there's some things, where we need to understand how in different situations we manage time, how we develop people and coach them so that they can take on a lot of our work and we can manage time better. For example, in medicine, you'll have, interns and young doctors whom you train better and then hand over to them so that you can move on to something else and take better, more serious cases. One important framework for time management, at least, I thought I'll share this rather than just leave a thought, is, from the previous discussions on purpose and our sense of direction, whenever we have to take decision on what is to be done and what is to be prioritized, we can plot them on the important and urgent matrix. So something on high urgency, low urgency, high importance, low importance. So very clearly, something which is high on importance and high on urgency is to be done first. And this is number 4. Low importance, low urgency has to be dropped out. Number 2 would be high on importance and low on urgency. Very often people think, number 3 will be high on urgency and low on importance. But the point is, it's high on urgency, but it's not important. We can just drop it. We don't need to do it also. We can delegate it. So number 1 is high importance, high urgency. Number 2 is high importance, low urgency, because if it's not done, it will become important someday. So this is the time metrics which people can use if they wish to do. But all of these are, we should not get into analysis paralysis, and therefore that holistic thinking comes in. Otherwise, we get into the trap of rational logical thinking. A lot of the stuff can be, very soon in the future we'll go into artificial intelligence and algorithms and machine learning. So at that point in time, there is the role of that gut can play. We have a lot of information in the gut where intuition plays a role. So when a doctor becomes expert, Sanjay, they say uska haath saaf ho gaya.
Yeah.
So at that stage, the doctor doesn't probably, take time to analyze and get into so many rational thinking. But gut says, okay, but gut is not random. Gut is because over years, so much of information has, got into that expertise. So if you read that, this book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, he talks about how experts take a decision. I was very, pleased to read about, Atul Gawande wrote in his book Being Mortal.
Mm-hmm.
When we are young doctors, we are told how to do a surgery, and then we are told when to do it. But when we become masters, we know when not to do it, and that is where gut plays a role, where intuition plays a role. Everyone can't do it, so the role of gut and intuition becomes very important. And next is role of destiny and a sense of destiny. So very important. We say, okay, all this is happening, it's fine, but still we find that we are not able to, addiction, for example, we are not able to give up addiction. We do all the rational thinking. We know New Year resolutions are for no smoking are to be taken. Post January, all New Year resolutions get broken, because beyond the rational thinking, there is something else at play, and that's where the holistic side of the brain, the right side, the subconscious side, play a role. So very quickly, that is a part which is called emotional intelligence, where this guy spent 17 years in Robben Island prison, and yet when he walked out, he took, if you see the movie Invictus, he just takes a very different stand against the whites, and just doesn't get into a vindictive mode. So he says, as I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'll still be in prison. It's a very balanced decision group. If he had gone by left brain or just a vindictive approach, he may not have been able to do what he was able to do. And this part is called emotional intelligence, where it is about using emotions intelligently. Emotions are important in taking decisions. Sometimes people say emotions are not important. We should not use emotions in taking decisions. But emotions are important. The only thing is emotions need to be used intelligently. Otherwise, like for the doctors in this group, we know that the first impulse goes across one synapse to the amygdala from the hippocampus. But and we get a amygdala hijack. But if we wait, they say count 10, breathe slowly, have a sip of water, by which time the signal has gone from the hippocampus to the frontal cortex. And that's the role of emotional intelligence. So they say it's not about using emotions or intelligence, it's about both. And the question is, how do we balance the use of both? It's emotions and intelligence to take decisions. And that's the most difficult part, to take decisions. And that's where we need to bring left side of the brain, right side of the brain, subconscious, superconscious. Some people use superconscious spirituality. What emotional intelligence then therefore helps us do when we balance all these things together is help us get our self-awareness, empathy towards others, how we should be reacting towards others, how we motivate ourselves, how we regulate ourselves, and how we have relationships with people. And so these are very important parameters of emotional intelligence, and they help us take balanced decisions when we talk about decision making and time management. Decision can go awry if we are not emotionally intelligent. So the some of the measures of high emotional intelligence are decisiveness. We talk of decision making, how we influence people. We take rash decisions, or we keep waiting for decisions. We take a lot of data for decisions, or we move on with lesser data. So all these, emotional intelligence helps us to decide motivation of ourselves, empathy, how we relate with others, how we adapt to situations. Conscientiousness is very clearly related to time management. This conscientiousness is about meeting deadlines. Do we rush into decisions? into deadlines, we become, we're not careful. We go by urgency of decisions. We break rules, or we are very particular about deadlines and timelines. So high conscientiousness is meeting deadlines, timelines. If you're low on consciousness, we will sort of skip deadlines. We will not be giving them importance. Resilience on how we respond under stress situations, and all of it gets best resolved with self-awareness. So these are all put together, and when we are talking about getting all these things together, there is a very important role of feedback, of understanding myself, of self-awareness, so that I'm ultimately able to develop my emotional intelligence, which allows me a good use of left side of the brain and right side of the brain, and get both emotions and intelligence balance. But as I say, to do this, there are three things that are important. We need to have courage to handle it, to face ourselves. We need humility to be able to access it, and we need discipline. So CHD formula, courage, humility, discipline, is what is needed to take this route to a better decision making and time management. Otherwise, no one can help us. It's our own route. Like Krishna told Arjuna, after all this Gyan of Gita, Arjun, you'll have to raise by yourself. I've told you everything, but final decision is yours, and how you want to act is yours. And once we do that, we have a sense of delight, which helps us rejoice when we do our work successfully, when we take good decisions, when we meet timelines, deadlines, when everything around us is happy. Have fun and celebrate your successes. And Sanjay, depending on time, I had to rush through. I picked up speed. We are at 45 minutes. So any questions?
That's wonderful. I mean, the whole concept is really amazing. And yes, very valuable information you condense in a short period of time, because I've read about a few of these things which are in much detail, but yes, you have to compress it in a short time, but it's really amazing. So do we have any questions, Anupma?
No, Dr. Dhawan, I do not see any questions. I am checking the group and also your timeline.
Okay, so meanwhile, JP, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
First of all, do you think that the decision making in the COVID times has changed, and how does it affect our decision making?
Yeah, in COVID times, I was before this session, we were having a chat with Manpreet also. What has happened is that a couple of things, have really become important. Primarily related to emotional intelligence. So resilience, for example, a lot of people are talking about it. And resilience is about how I handle stress, how I handle emotions, emotional control. So emotional intelligence, which is a very important component of decision making, if in some cases that starts taking a hit, so there's a risk of wrong decisions getting taken, rushed decisions getting taken, decisions getting taken under pressure. Whereas there's stress, there's concern, there's worry about the pandemic, there is worry about finances, there is worry about the illness, about family, about health. So decision making becomes quite difficult if we lose our sense of balance. A lot of people are using help from therapists and counselors to make sure that they're able to grapple with this better. So yes, these times are putting pressure on people, and decision making, does go awry under such circumstances.
And has COVID changed the way we should be managing our time?
It has, it's not the same thing. Uh, there are different ways, again, depending on the fundamental point again goes back to, what is my purpose and what I really want to do. Everyone has the same time, so like I was, some different points here. When I speak to corporates, and they're all, on Zoom throughout the day. So right from morning, extended hours, starting at 8 to 10 o'clock in the evening, one Zoom meeting to the next. They're not able to, get a break to ease their mind. And what I think is corporates are looking at now is, to give them a time off from Zoom meetings so that they can recharge their batteries, and to let them have a few hours in between meetings to relax themselves. But there are people, who are clear about how their purpose is headed, who are able to build up their, they're using time to build up their skills and knowledge. A lot of certifications going on. A lot of people are trying, their skills and hobbies. So different ways. Some people under pressure are not able to manage that, but some people are using it brilliantly. You're singing, and Dr. Sharma joining you. You people are using Smule in a very great way.
Another question which comes to me is that, what if the right and the left brain, you talked about the right and the left brain, that you should consult both the brains. Now, what if these two brains, these two parts of us are at conflict with each other? Because I was asked a question by somebody in my last week that what if heart and head are at war with each other, and what do you do?
See, that's what one of the slides showed. It's the shortest distance.
Yes, yeah.
But the most difficult to bridge.
Yeah.
There will be differences. Some people are more left brain. Some people are more right brain. Some people are very spiritual, and they would be at conflict very easily. And that's where working on self becomes important. And it's easier said than done. Therefore, I was saying it's not so much of extrinsic work. It's intrinsic work. And mindfulness exercises, meditation exercises, what we call alignment. Indian philosophy has a lot of solutions to this. To align all the chakras in a proper manner. They may not happen. So there is not just two. Sanjay, there is head, heart, and body.
Right.
So it's related to head to intelligence, heart to emotions, body to action. Even the three out of these three, one can be more powerful. So, for example, someone takes an action immediately. So, and someone else is, who would think a lot more. So there will be these differences. And, if you look at Indian philosophy, we do have people using Karam Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Dhyan Yoga, which is head, heart, and body again, depending on, what they are good at. But the whole point is use any of those, but gradually move beyond those. And it's like pole vault. You have to use these to reach a height, but you cannot carry with, cross the bar with a pole. Somewhere you have to leave it. In wherever philosophy or psychology, it's called integration as well. So it's integration levels. When the heart, head, and body are in alignment. So it's deep work.
Great. That's
so you
really
reach a sattvic stage as per philosophy. You reach a trans sattvic stage, and that's the purpose of life. Finally.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, COVID has put us in a situation where all of us are, made to rethink our approach to life, our approach to decision making, our ways of managing times. Because during these last few months of lockdown and the pandemic, we have done things differently. We have done different things and done them differently. And many times it is not the profession or what is the most important or the first priority earlier on that has taken backseat by compulsion. So, and we have explored new things and we found new meaning in those things. So that's given us a new way to look at stuff. So it's very, very important to have an open mind, keep exploring, and try to achieve a balance between various aspects of
Absolutely.
life.
That balance is very critical.
Very, very important. So thank you very much, JP, for this enlightening
Thank you so much.
chat. And I'm sure that our audience will gain a lot. At least if they start thinking in these terms, if they start using these terminology to organize their thoughts, it'll be of great help. And we move on to our next session, next part of the session. But before that, TLC. So we have in our new format a performance by a surprise guest, and today's surprise guest is our very own Vrinda Chadha. Vrinda, please show up.
I'm right here. Thank you so much for having me, Sanjay uncle.
Uncle mat kaho na. जब लोग कहते कि आंटी मत कहो ना तो हम क्यों नहीं कहते कि अंकल मत कहो.
Hi Vrinda. Hi Vrinda.
अब ये बोलेगी निधि दीदी, संजय uncle. So that is the conflict. So Vrinda is our little child, and she is an amazing Odissi dancer, an amazing singer. Singing part will come in future. Today she's going to be performing for us her Odissi, and I've seen her, learning Odissi from the very, very early childhood and growing and shaping up. Now she's actually reached a professional stage where she's traveling all over the world, giving her dance performances. She's a disciple of Padma Shri, forgetting the name.
Ranjana Gaur.
Miss Ranjana Gaur. Yes. So over to you, Vrinda, please.
Thank you so much. And I thoroughly enjoyed the bit of conversation that I was able to hear between Mr. Singh and you. I think I'm taking away lots of thoughts about how to manage time effectively. And I couldn't help but reflect on how I was perceiving time during this lockdown. I think when it began for me, time just kind of walked. It became so slow. And as Mr. Singh spoke about finding purpose and how to divide your time according to, what you think is the right thing for you to do with your life, it eventually began to, kind of feel like it's coming back to normal. So it was funny to perceive time that way to, sometimes feeling like it's too slow and sometimes feeling like it's becoming fast and you're not even realizing when 24 hours are over. And then finally finding your stability within a day. So yeah, today I'm going to show you a little Odissi piece, which is pure dance. I'm not going to be showing an interpretive piece. This is going to be a pure dance piece. And I think for me, this is the best use of my time to kind of decorate that time cycle with lots of movements, symmetry, tal, rhythm. That's how I like to use my time, best. And a little bit of do today. So dance is a celebration of life. The best example of this joy and celebration is pure dance nritya piece called Pallavi. So today I'll be presenting a Pallavi called Saveri Pallavi. It gets its name after the raga it is based in. It is based in Rag Saveri. It's called Saveri Pallavi. It begins with simple movements of pure dance and progresses to complicated steps interwoven with rhythmic syllables. This piece is a metaphor, like many pieces in Indian classical dance. It represents the journey of the self from the mundane to the spiritual, and it is marked by sculpturesque poses of the Odisha temples, poses and neat lines. It is based in Rag Saveri and it is set in Tal, Ek Tali and Triputa. Ek Tali is a time cycle of 4 beats and Triputa is a time cycle of 7 beats. So I hope you enjoy this Pallavi. It is choreographed by Guru Mayadhar Raut, another legendary guru from one of the doyens and pillars of creators who created the repertoire of Odissi. So here goes. Enjoy the show, and I'm going to begin soon. Just testing out the audio for the music. Is it audible?
Yes, it is. It is.
Great.
Dream ta
That's so beautiful, so beautiful. Vrinda, you're amazing, actually. And let me tell the audience that Vrinda is such a graceful dancer. Seeing her live is a very different thing. You know, what you watch here right now, you cannot get the whole effect and the impact of what the live performance is. She looks so beautiful. She dances so beautifully. Each and every moment is so fluid. It actually flows. There is, and so it looks so effortless and it looks so artistic. You know, it's really amazing watching her live on stage. And that gives me an idea that once things open up, once this COVID subsides, for our group, the live chat, we'll hold a live event, you know, where Vrinda and everybody else who are into performance of any kind will get an opportunity to perform on the stage live to all the audience. So, Vrinda, that's promise to you and promise to the whole.
That's wonderful, Uncle. And I think it's so great that you're doing this. I think I don't know, personally, I don't know any other doctor who's so, versatile with, be it in the creative aspect or, having your profession running parallelly with that and also hosting these chat series. I really admire that. And I think it'll be fantastic for all of us to meet up for real.
Vrinda, कुछ अंकल थोड़े से सर के होते हैं, I'm one of them. So thank you very much, Vrinda, for agreeing to give this performance to all of us.
It was a pleasure, and I loved attending today's session. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's see what do we have next, and since we've okay, so the announcement for the next week. Next week we're going to be having one amazing session, and it'll be the Zoom Lens session. And so we'll be merging Zoom Lens and the live chat on one single session that day. And we have one wonderful guest, Dinesh Khanna. He's one of the leading photographers of India, who is into professional photography, and he's also a photography teacher in various institutes. So he'll be talking to us about colorful frames. that's his specialty. You know, his photographs, his pictures are so colorful and so amazing that the colors speak volume in each picture. You know? So he's agreed to come on our show and to talk to us and share his knowledge and information about photography with us. So we'll get to learn a lot from him. So next week, that is next Saturday, 28th of November, same time, 6 p.m., we'll be having Dinesh Khanna in the live chat, and this session will be the Zoom lens on colorful frames. You know? So I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's live session. Just like you do each time, you know, and I want to thank people in backstage, Manpreet, Anupma, Nidhi, and I'd like to thank again my special guest, Mr. JP Singh and Brinda Chadda, our little guest, not so little anymore, and for coming on this show. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. See you all next week, and stay happy, stay blessed. Keep participating in the live chat group. Keep contributing. It is your contribution and your participation which is making the group really lively and vibrant. Thank you. Bye-bye.